I'm Lizzie,
And I'm Brenda.
and welcome back to
Small Step Society.
This is episode 13, Forming Good Habits.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Hey guys.
Hello! Welcome back.
Oh, you're excited.
I'm very excited.
Well, song in the moment then, I guess.
Yeah, let's go.
Get into it. Okay, our weekly segment, song in the moment.
Yes, what's your song of the moment?
My song of the moment is Cruel by Snake Hips, featuring Zayn.
Oh.
Very fun. Well, what's your song of the moment?
My song of the moment is Six from Six the Musical.
Aha.
The musical is like the retelling of the story of the 6 wives of Henry VIII back in the olden days. It's actually pretty good. It's a really short musical, but it's pretty vibey, I'd say.
Pretty vibey.
Brenda, I have a problem.
What's the problem?
So every 3 months or so, I get this habit back of splitting my split ends in my hair.
Oh.
Because my hair doesn't get trimmed enough, and then it just goes bad.
Oh, that's
I
a terrible
know.
habit.
It really is.
You should break that habit. Like you break the split ends.
Word. True. True.
But more importantly, you should also build new habits on top of that. Maybe like get your hair trimmed more often, you know? Get into the habit of it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Forming Good Habits.
Yay!
In my research for this episode, I came across this article on Masterclass that made this interesting distinction between habits and routine. And they made this distinction in the factor of intention.
Oh.
So habits are basically intentional. Like you practice them so that you get into the habit. And then once the habit is kind of like consolidated, I guess, it becomes a routine. And they're not intentional anymore per se. They're more like they just happen, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of like muscle memory, except it's your brain memory.
Oh. Which is a muscle, like.
Yeah. Point being, routines become habits once you practice them enough.
That's true.
That's why bad habits, I guess, become routines, because they get practice and then they just happen without you wanting to do them.
Yeah, exactly.
But of course, we must always ask the question, why do this? Why should we form good habits?
I think forming habits is good because, like, generally speaking, the bigger picture, you get improved health and then thus along your life. So you get increased happiness because you cope more effectively with stress, and therefore you get enhanced self-esteem, you have greater confidence, and it kind of like, because you have enhanced self-esteem, you get greater respect from others, and like, you have better professional success because you're respected by others, there's improved focus, but all in all, habits conserve energy because like you said, habits become routine, and like good habits become good routines.
Yeah.
And you just kind of do it, like go through the motions, but it's good for you.
Yeah.
That
I
makes
didn't,
sense.
I didn't even think about like the people perceiving you aspect of it.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So what are some ways of creating good habits?
I think a really good one that I've learned is building them into existing habits. So it's called a habit stack. For example, like if you do your night routine every day, and like it's a routine, you know? Like you wash your face, you brush your teeth, and you've been realizing your bathroom's getting messy or like your sink counter space is getting messy. Build that into your night routine because you already have like that habit that's been established.
Oh, yeah.
And so just adding one more step is a little easier than like perceiving it as a whole new thing you need to do. So that's really helpful.
Yeah. And I think another one is like start small and build up to the quote unquote ultimate habit. So kind of like if you're creating a workout routine, start with one thing and then keep stacking like week after week or something where the first thing became a routine. And then you just add one more thing.
Yeah.
Like work your way up.
Yeah. I think it's really good because like I've been in a situation where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to start working out. And then we did it last year. We went to the gym every single morning at 6:30 a.m.
Yeah.
for a week. And then we stopped because it was impractical. But if we had like gone maybe like once a week and then built up to 2 times a week, or like started going at 8 a.m. and then going and building it up to like 6:30 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Probably would have actually became a habit.
Yeah. And I think that's also good because you just focus on one thing at a time
Yeah.
rather than 7 million things
Yeah.
for like 7 weeks. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, similarly, like making feasible goals. Like,
Mhm.
don't get too lofty with your aspirations, you know? There's nothing wrong with, like, having limits. We all do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just about knowing them. And also, I think I want to make, like, an analogy to, like, the bigger journey of life and, like, how when you have a goal, like, not a habit, like a quote-unquote real goal, like, something more concrete, like getting a job.
Mm-hmm.
There are little steps that you implement along the way to get to the job,
Mhm.
and focusing on that. I feel like we've had experiences where like focusing on that specific tiny thing then helps us achieve the bigger goal without feeling so overwhelmed or so stressed.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Taking small bites.
Yeah.
Or taking small steps.
Oh my god.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Yeah, I think another thing is also positive reinforcement. If you get the positive reinforcement, you're like, oh, yes.
Mm.
For me personally, I think one really simple thing that doesn't cause financial strain is just checking off boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I do a habit and then I check it off where I color it in, I'm like, yes.
Oh
It's
yeah.
so pretty, so
Mhm.
satisfying. And it's enough positive reinforcement for me to keep going.
Oh yeah. That's why task lists so
Mhm.
helpful.
Yeah. But I know, like, there's other ways where, like, you go on a walk where, like, you spend 20 minutes doing your favorite thing, like reading a book or being on your phone or, like, getting a treat. Like, those are all positive reinforcements,
Yeah.
too.
So something that might be helpful with habits and building them is like doing it every day at the beginning. And I know that sounds contradictory because I had said that like you should start small and build up. But I think it depends on like what the challenge is with the habit. For example, with going to the gym, because it's like this huge thing, like you're struggling with even going to the gym in the first place. It's not like you're trying to build like a workout in like it's not like you're already going to the gym and then building out like you're doing new push-ups as part of your routine that you already
Mhm.
have. So with that, I think it's like better to like do it once a week and then build up. But with goals such as like adding push-ups to your routine, I think with that sometimes it's better to do it every day at the beginning because it'll just get into habit, and so you won't even think about doing the push-ups. And then it's so much easier to just unlearn that positive habit. Because obviously you can just stop yourself from doing the push-ups if you don't want to do it every day.
Yeah, and another thing is creating an environment that is conducive to building that habit. So, like what Brenda had mentioned earlier with, like, cleaning your sink after you do your nightly routine. Keep a towel there or keep a wipe there so it's easy for you to just quick grab it, do the habit, and then call it good.
Yeah.
Versus if you have to go grab a towel, then it's extra work and it makes it harder for the habit to be a routine.
Yeah, it's kind of like how you said about habits conserving energy.
Exactly.
If you already have it there, less energy,
Exactly.
less of a task.
Mhm.
You're also breaking it down.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, give yourself time. I know we've all heard, like, the 20-90 rule, where, like, it takes 21 days to make a habit, 90 days to make it permanent in your lifestyle. But, I mean, that's just a generalization, as most things are. Some things take more time than others. You know, especially if you're replacing a habit, like your split ends thing, it probably takes a longer time to do because not only are you, like, trying to unlearn, like, messing with your hair, I don't know, but you also have to, like, implement this new thing on top of that.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it takes more time. Whereas some things might take less time, like, I don't know, having a tablecloth every time you eat. And then, of course, remind yourself why you're implementing the habit. So kind of goes along with the positive reinforcement, but, like, those are the two things that aren't necessarily action-based, but they're still important to the habits. Like, if you don't have good reasoning, the habit won't stick because you won't feel the actual need to do it. Like, going back to working out, like, that's why a lot of people say, like, if you're not working out for the right reasons, you're probably less likely to do it because, like, deep down, you might not believe that it's actually necessary for you to work out or it's not necessary for you to, like, clean your sink. So.
Yeah, so while I was doing that research, it's along the lines of kind of know why you're doing this habit. This is from the book Better Than Before by Gretchen Rubin. And she outlines the 4 tendencies / personalities for habit change. So tendencies, in this case, are psychological dispositions on how we respond to inner and outer expectations. Inner expectations being things like New Year's Day resolutions and things that you come up with for yourself inner. internally, and then outer expectations are work deadlines that other people put on top of you.
Oh, so like intrinsic and extrinsic
Yeah.
motivations. Okay.
Mhm. So we have 4 different tendencies, like I mentioned. The first one is upholders. They respond well to outer and inner expectations. So for these types, change is the easiest out of the 4 types. Not necessarily easy, but like it's the easiest out of the 4. I won't go too
Okay.
much into that one. But the second one is questioners. So they respond well to inner expectations, but not to outer expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to be clear with themselves that creating a new habit is worthwhile. And if they, like, once they determine their own rationale for this habit, they're more likely to be successful because they're not easily swayed by others' rules or regulations.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, we have obligers. So they are motivated by deadlines and rules, and they try to meet others' expectations. And the core strategy for these kind of people would be to build in some kind of external accountability for their habits.
It's like
Like-
the positive reinforcement.
Yeah, and kind of like going to the gym with someone else
Mm-hmm.
because now you're accountable for other people as well.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and like I think we are obligers in that sense.
yeah.
That like we would do it for the other person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then the fourth one are rebels. So we had upholders who respond well to both inner and outer changes. Rebels do not respond well to either. So habit change is quite difficult for rebels, but one core strategy is to identify habits that line up with their chosen values.
Mhm.
And another strategy is to kind of like think through the advantages and disadvantages, kind of like face the facts, pros and cons. And I think that kind of helps them start the habit because it's more factual rather than motivational.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Oh my gosh, I think I'm a rebel. Because, okay, I actually want to hear your perspective on this. I think I've probably talked to you about this in real life. But, I don't know why I said it like
Podcast is fake life.
that. True. No, but, like I had this habit over the summer where I'd get up at like 8 or like 7:30 to do work. And so before that, I'd like tell myself I'd drink a bottle of water before I like did anything else in the day. And I was sticking to it, and then I told my friend that I was doing it. And right after I told my friend, I never did it again. But like with that, I'm like, I don't know how to make myself do the habit when I tell other people that I'm doing it. Like I don't understand why that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Help me.
I mean, I'm not certified in any way, so I don't know if I can help you at all. Like, but I don't know. I feel like that happens a lot. Like, in this case, it's like you're telling somebody else, but in other cases, it's also like if you're gonna do something and somebody else tells you to do that same exact thing, you suddenly lose motivation
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah.
I think it's the same kind of like
It is. Yeah.
realm of things. I don't know.
I know, right? Like I feel like that's something, especially like growing up, you it happens to you a lot. Like your
Mhm.
mom's like, clean your room. And you're like, I already was, but
Yeah.
now I'm not gonna do it.
Exactly.
Very rebellious.
It is very rebellious. So I guess think through the advantages and disadvantages and like convince yourself that this is good for you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because drinking a bottle of water in the morning is really good for you.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've noticed positive changes until you stopped.
Yeah,
I don't know, yeah.
you're right. And then of course, it's a common theme. Introspection.
Yeah!
Yeah.
Introspection, introspection, introspection.
Yeah. Self-awareness, like realizing what you're doing wrong. And I don't mean just like figuring out like what habits you need to change. I also mean, well, I mean that's, you should do that. But also like while you're building a habit, realize like, you know, keep checking in, keep calibrating yourself, if you will.
Calibrating yourself, that's very professional.
Like think about what's causing you stress. Like I think that's why like going back to my example of like how I am a quote unquote rebel with habits is like because I think that like people are expecting me to do the habit now that I don't want to do it. And in terms of that, like that does cause me stress, which is
Mhm.
why I stopped the habit.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
basically, think about is building the habit causing you more stress than it's worth. There is no shame in deciding not to build the habit, you know, after you try it out. But of course, make sure to think about it rationally because what I just said is not rational. But you know, like think about, oh, is this habit like actually taking up way too much of my time? It's cost benefit, you know?
I think one common bad habit involves technology, and recently it's come quite a few times in my life. And yeah, so anyways, according to Gallup, an average US teenager spends 4.8 hours per day on social media platforms.
That's crazy.
Yeah, from 13 to 19-year-olds.
Wow, you made
That's-
it out. You made it out.
Yes, now I'm 20. Hey!
Sorry.
Yeah, but if you do the math, it's about 25% of your like waking hours. Let's say you sleep for 8 hours. That's 16 hours left. And 4.8, like 5-ish, like
That's crazy.
yeah. It's 3 months out of a whole year that you're just on social media.
That's terrible.
It's a lot of time that we're quote unquote wasting,
Oh my gosh.
right?
Yeah.
And recently, there's been people around me who are trying to combat this, which props to them. Recently, there's been people around me trying to combat this by deleting social media altogether. So this is like 100 to 0 real quick.
Yeah.
It's commitment. And the way I kind of moderated this was I just took my most used apps off of my home screen. So I still have it. I can still access it, but it just takes longer for me to get to it.
Yeah.
And I can't see it in front of my face.
And it's also like not muscle memory anymore.
Yeah. So it did help me. I did lower my screen time and I did spend less time on social media. But the one thing that we all noticed was that we have an addiction to scrolling, not to like the absence like itself. Because
oh my gosh.
I find myself scrolling on my emails and my photos.
Oh yeah. Oh, photos. Yeah, I do.
Because I have nothing else to scroll on. And the emails don't refresh. Like I don't get a new email every minute. You know what I mean? I'm just looking at the same thing. And photos, like I'm looking at the same pictures over and over. But we're so addicted to the motion of scrolling that you just find something else to do.
That's crazy.
I know. It's wild. Anyways, there's a way to combat this. And I think it's like reading a book online, like an ebook,
Mm-hmm.
because you're still scrolling, right?
Yeah.
But it's a little more productive.
Yeah.
You know? And a lot of people say like this is the time where you make like where you do hobbies. But like a lot of people kind of realize in that moment that we don't have hobbies to
That's
do
so terrible.
because we spend so much time on social media.
Yeah.
So a lot of people say like go to the gym, like just physically get away from your phone.
Yeah.
Or like learn how to play guitar because you're using both hands while playing guitar. You can't really touch
Yeah.
the phone.
I will say people like find excuses to use their phone for anything though.
That's true.
Like, yeah, I've done the thing where I'm like, oh, I'll put my phone away, and then I'm like, oh, but I need to check this. So I think like something that's helpful is like knowing what you'll need your phone for, and like
Mhm.
downloading everything or like
Yes.
printing something out. And I know that's old school, but like, you know, if it helps.
I totally agree with that. Recently, when I've been swamped with schoolwork, I just toss my phone on my bed. And my
Uh-huh.
bed's not super made, so like it gets hidden under the covers,
Uh-huh.
and I can't find it. So then I kind of forget about it, and then I do all my work, and then if there's one thing where I'm like, oh, I really need my phone for this one, if it's, I don't know, then I have to like go find it,
Yeah.
and it's a whole thing.
Yeah. No, I think that's actually more effective because, like, you know how, I don't know if it's on other, like, devices, but, like, Apple, they have, like, the screen time feature
Mm-hmm.
where you can, like, you can lock an app after you use it for, like, 30 minutes a day.
Yeah.
That is, I have never once been able to, like, actually stick with that because there's the opportunity, obviously, to, like, say, actually, I'm overriding this.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to just press that button and be like, oh, overriding it, and then it's overridden.
Yep.
You know? So I think, like, physically getting away from your phone is a really good point,
Mm-hmm.
rather than, like, putting all these easy fixes.
Yeah.
Or having someone else hold you accountable.
yeah.
That's also really helpful. Like, make it a challenge with your friends. Like, oh my gosh, you know in elementary school how they used to have, like, reading challenges?
Yes.
Where you'd, like, see who could, like, read the most pages, and it just, like, kept you motivated, and you build that habit of reading.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's actually, yeah.
That would be
That'd be
good.
helpful.
Like a little roommate competition on who can be away from their phone the longest.
Yeah.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think another solution besides deleting your social media is putting your phone in black and white.
Oh.
So I found that it quote unquote bores you because we're so attracted to the colors.
Mm-hmm.
So I've read a couple anecdotes on this through the Yale Daily News and The Guardian. And in both anecdotes, they say that the phone addiction itself didn't go away, but it does help hinder the attempts of like companies like trying to capture your attention by using bright colors. And like the bright red notifications are less like like
Yeah.
less shouty, less obvious. So the desire to go through your apps and like just get rid of those notifications is way less.
Yeah.
Which is good. And I've also heard that they play less games
Mhm.
if games is the main reason you're using your phone, because so many games are like based on color that if there is no color, it's not fun anymore, and like you
Mhm.
really can't play those games anymore. But they both of them did mention like an unexpected effect where they put their phones back in color. They were like, ow, my eyes, like this
Yeah.
is just too much. This is a direct quote from Alex Hearn, who wrote in The Guardian. Everything seems incredibly garish. I find myself wishing that app designers would use a few more pastel shades and a lot fewer striking red and greens in their icons.
Yeah.
So it was just too much.
Yeah.
And both of them said they try to adjust their phone back to simplicity, like turning off badges on apps that don't need them,
Mhm.
kind of like changing everything back to kind of grayscale. So
Yeah.
there's another way to kind of deter yourself from using your phone. But
Yeah. And I mean, like, you have to remind yourself, like, I feel like sometimes I'm like, why do I have this, like, addiction to my phone? Like, other people are able to do just fine with, like, this aspect of it. But then it's, like, the reason why all these updates have happened on phones, like, having the notifications and, like, being able to do, like, having higher LED displays on the phones is because, like, marketers or, like, whoever's developing it, like, they've done research to, like,
yeah.
show, this is addicting.
for sure.
It's all capitalism, guys. No, but seriously, like, so it just makes a lot of sense that, like, you are addicted to your phone and there's nothing wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how phones are made.
Yeah.
And especially with, like, social media, that's why everything's, like, so scrollable, because it's so easy. It's,
Mhm.
like, one finger. Just keep
Mhm.
tapping it. But it's also funny when I see, like, have you seen that, like, attachment you can put on your bed so you can just, like, scroll on your phone without even
Yeah.
holding it? Yeah. It's all, like, just to make it addictive
Mm-hmm.
and just, like, give into that. So it's also funny. This is very sorry, getting into psychology here. But there's hypotheses that, like, evolution has caused our brains to decrease in size compared to, like, ancestors
Mm-hmm.
because of, like, everything being more simplistic now for us. Like, everything is made easy for us to, like, quote unquote give us more time to, like, think about complex issues.
Mm-hmm.
But because we're making everything so simple for ourselves, like, we lose, I guess, the ability almost to think creatively,
Yeah.
which is another reason why building good habits is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I've kind of gotten away from that. But point being, yeah, I think, like, training yourself and, like, giving yourself desirable difficulties, like we talked about in that episode, is really helpful.
I think personally as an obliger, it really helps if my desires of habits are like put out in the world,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm like, oh, other people know. I need to really start doing this.
Yeah.
So I think it might be a good idea to just kind of talk about one good habit that we want to implement in the next 90
Mhm.
days to make it a routine.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. Do you want to go first?
No.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay, I can go first. One good habit that I want to start doing. I actually did this all throughout high school, and then I stopped in college. One, because I don't have enough room. Two, because the floor is dirty.
Mm.
But now that I have a rug in my room, I would like to stretch again.
Mm.
I lost my flexibility. I lost my splits, and that makes me really sad.
Yeah.
So I did it a couple days ago, and then I was sore the next day.
I know. That's, like, the worst thing when you had a habit and then you lose it
Yeah.
and then you have to rebuild it again. It's so much harder to find motivation.
Yes, because it hurts way more for doing the same thing that I did a year and a half
Yeah.
ago.
And you're like, I knew I could do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's one thing that I don't want to lose, so I'm going to get on it again.
Mm-hmm.
What's your habit that you want to implement?
I think setting, like, a laundry day or, like, a cleaning my room day.
Mm.
Because I was in a good habit of, like, doing it, like, every 2 weeks or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then one week I just stopped. I was like, okay, this week I'm busy, so I can't do it. And, like, I rationalized it, and then I never did it again.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, I think illustrates the point that, like, habits, when you're building them, even when you're not building, like, when they've already been built, it's just so much easier to, like, unlearn them
Yeah.
than to learn them. You can rationalize something so quickly. Be like, oh, like, today I'm not going to do this habit because of this reason. And then
Mhm.
it just you get into the habit of, like, finding reasons to not do it. And they can be different every day, and yet you'll still end up losing that habit. So,
I think this is just true for anything. Like, it takes you so long to build something, and it takes one hit to just crumble it down. Like
Yeah.
sandcastles
True. Yeah.
or like buildings.
Even truer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, one last thing. I read a book. It's a very popular book, actually, called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. It's a really good book. It has a yellow cover, and there's a bicycle on it. Now you know. But it's such a good book. Like, they have a lot of anecdotes that I think make like, their points about habits and, like, building them and all of that very relatable.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember reading that book, and I was like, wow. Like, I don't know. It was a very engaging book, and I feel like with nonfiction, people are always like, it's not engaging. But I think
Mm-hmm.
because they had a lot of stories and it was really helpful, and I think I learned a lot about, like, building habits and, you know, just overall falling into routines that are good for me.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing is, I haven't read this book, but I've heard people swear by it. Atomic Habits by James Clear. Apparently it's a really good book for, like, building habits, and everyone who reads it, like, they learn a lot from it. So
Mm-hmm.
just some little recommendations. Maybe you can build that into a habit, like, you know,
Yeah.
read 10 minutes every day.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's really all I have to say. What about you?
Yeah, me too.
Well, guys, we're reaching the end of the season, I will say. Next week, next Sunday to be exact, because we post every Sunday,
Yes.
will be your last episode for the season.
Yes.
But anyway, if you haven't watched other episodes, or if you want to watch next week,
Mm-hmm.
you can find the video version of us on YouTube. You can find the audio version of us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, anywhere you can find podcasts except where you cannot.
Mhm.
And, follow us on Instagram at
Yes.
Small Step Society Pod.
Yes. And if you want any updates on further seasons, what our plans are, you can find those on Instagram.
Yeah. I should have built that in a habit. Oh my gosh. I changed the wording every single time. Keep you guys on your toes. But with that, adios.
See you next Sunday.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.